Al.
Recording in progress, gentlemen. We're rolling. JD and Brian, we're rolling now. Thank you. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Clinton Health Kitchen Land Use Committee meeting of February 2026. Alert that Community Board 4 has a hybrid policy that can be found on our website. Board members are expected to attend meetings in person unless they have disability and/or extraordinary circumstance. Excused members and members of the public will still be able to participate virtually. Members who are joining via Zoom must leave their cameras on. This meeting is being streamed live on our YouTube channel and a transcript is being recorded. My name is Paul Devlin. I'm co-chair of the Health Kitchen Land Use Committee. My other co-chair, Rachel Lee, is not joining us tonight because she is potentially getting recognized for her skill set in her profession as a lawyer. And there is a ceremony this evening that she is at instead of here, so we may be sending her congratulatory comments later. On the agenda tonight, we have two items up for discussion. Both are, in my mind, sort of an opportunity to address the new administration on some older issues that we want to take a position on. First is the Western Rail Yards pilot financing for decking over the project, and then the second would be a discussion on a letter regarding the Landmarks Preservation Commission. We'll have some other old business, so once we're done with the agenda, please don't expect that the meeting will end. But let's start by going around the room and introducing ourselves.
Sure. Joe Sucha, member and co-chair, Housing Health Human Services.
Kevin Collins, member.
John Danielle, member.
Brian Weber, public member.
Bob Battle, public member.
Sanford Miller, member.
Federitas, member.
Aaron Hoffman, member.
And if any members of the audience also want to introduce themselves, you're welcome to or not.
Mine also in the Clinton Housing. Oh, Toby Dicing is there. Catherine McGrath is here.
What do you think?
Hi, I'm Johnny Kitchetta, I'm a reporter. At housing.
Renee.
You see you?
Oh.
President
Elliott, Chelsea Houses.
Great, thanks. And online, we have, go ahead.
James McDonald, member.
Thank you, James, and. One of our other community board members just walked into the room. To say who you are, so people know.
Yeah, hello, Jeff.
Very good. All right, let's start with agenda item 1, which is the Western Rail Yards pilot financing. As many of you know, in the last year, there was the rezoning at Western Rail Yards. As part of the process, the city council took action with the speaker of the council and then the mayor revising the pilot plan from 2009 to 2025 and some of the funding and bond issues. So Joe and Maya have put together a lot of information and we're going to have you can still participate in the conversation.
Sure, definitely Petey.
The property is actually not in the bid, but the developer is on the board.
All right, so Bob and Votto, as Public Road just declared P&E, but we'll appreciate his input and guidance in the conversation, just you can't vote.
And as part of the UTEP expansion, they will be in the bid.
All right, so Joe, over to you.
Yeah, so Ginny, do you have the first basic presentation, which is the various public entities that are involved in this whole transaction?
If you could ask Kim to bring me over and I can present.
Yeah, Ginny, can you bring Maya over from attendee to panelist and then you can.
Sure, one
do a
second.
presentation? Thank you.
So first, I want to know for the committee members, I thought this was sort of a minor research project turned into a major research project to figure out exactly the details of the nature of the transaction changed from the approval in May to the actions taken by two different boards in September, November, December. And we're going to first give you the broad picture of how the pilots work in general and then Hudson Yards. And that'll help you inform as we get into the details of the whole transaction. Can you close the slide down? Can you make that full screen? So Western Rail Yards. Western Rail Yards is is being brought into the special taxing district for Hudson Yards. And I want to know first, how many different public agencies are involved in this process? Next slide. So we have the New York City Department of Finance, Hudson Yards Infrastructure Corporation, the New York City Infrastructure Development Authority, and Hudson Yards Development Corporation. All of these, except for the Department of Finance, are, you call them public authorities, Bob? They're all public authorities, right? They're all public authorities that are set up in order to accomplish work either across the city in the case of the IDA, to create jobs and economic development, or in the case of Hudson Yards Infrastructure Corporation and HYDC, to do work here in Hudson Yards. Department of Finance is a city agency that directly reports to the mayor. These three boards all have members appointed by the mayor, the controller, borough president. There's all different council speaker, all different entities, all different elected officials appoint members to these boards. And the HYIC bonds that were initially issued, expansion of the number 7 line to 34th Street, and both the acquisition and the construction of Belle Abzac Park, which runs from 33rd up to 39th. Yeah, next. So WRY, very important thing, Western Rail Yards. The owner is still the Metropolitan Transportation Authority, the MTA. Both in Eastern Rail Yards and Western Rail Yards, they leased the property to a developer. And in both cases, that is related. So there's an entity related that has the Eastern, an entity related that has the Western. And theirs, in this case, is the WRY Tenant LLC. Next. In the standard process across the city, real estate taxes, if you own a piece of property, you pay your taxes to the City of New York Department of Finance. You get a bill, you pay it, that's how it works. Anybody have any questions so far on this part of it? Okay, so now it gets different. Next slide. Instead, where there are payments in lieu of taxes, they get diverted from the Department of Finance to some special public entity that is charged with doing XYZ, ABC in an area. It's Atlantic Yard, so there's something where they're going to build over there. It's going to be out in Jamaica, and there's specific stuff around the rail station. All depends upon what it is. And what a pilot is, it's a payment in lieu of taxes. That's a formula-based item. That there's a whole structure set up that instead of paying full taxes, you pay less. And you do that because the goal is to encourage development in an area that has not been developed. Questions? Yes, no? Okay, next. So to do that, you have to create what's called a UTEP. And give me the name, Maya, again, I keep forgetting it.
Uniform tax exemption.
Yes, Uniform Tax Exemption Program Area. A boundary is drawn on a map. And then any development within that boundary, under a set of specific regulations and notes and rules, the real estate taxes that would have been paid to the City of New York are diverted instead to the special public entity, in this case, HYIC, Hudson Yards Infrastructure Corporation. And you can see on this map that there's different regulations for different things, right? You get a 20% discount, you get this discount. If you build so many square feet, you get more of a discount. It was all about incentivizing development on the west side here in the Hudson Yards area. Please note that the current UTEP until very recently is the red line. And the Western Rail Yards and Marshalling Yards, which is owned by the Javits Center, were not included. Next. So what happens for the Western Rail Yards, real estate taxes, those pilots from all of Hudson Yards get paid to HYDC. HYDC takes that tax revenue that would have come in and actually goes and raises bonds against it. Does everyone understand how the bond market works in this case? Let me give you a much simpler example. The Port Authority gets tolls. They know how many tolls they get from Lincoln Tunnel, George Washington Bridge. That's a steady source of income. That's quantified. And in fact, you can take that and triple that amount of money by going to the bond market. Because you're going to the bond market, putting out a bond and saying, we're gonna pay you back. It's pretty much the example of getting a public mortgage. That's how I would say it. So this public authority, HYC, issues bonds. And it says, we're gonna pay you back from all this tax revenue that we're gonna get in.
Excuse me, that is HYDC that issue.
I see.
I see the issues for bonds.
I see.
Okay.
Yeah. So again, questions, because it's gonna get a little, after this, we're gonna get really complicated.
And just, this might be a premature question, but the MTA who owns the site and is leasing these sites to relate it, the MTA is responsible for the taxes, those taxes.
No, there are no taxes to the MTA at all.
Okay,
And as part of the whole deal to get money to the MTA got a source of funding that it didn't have before. Eastern and Western rail yards were built over MTA property. They have a lease for the Eastern rail yards and a lease for the Western rail yards. We have a new income source to the MTA, right? And in exchange for that, the MTA agreed that it would be subject to pilot payments. But the pilot payments would be passed along to the lessee, not to the owner, the MTA.
and the reason for that was that it incentivized development of.
Correct, and it would create, MTA was getting an income stream, now the city was getting an income stream, but it's set up in a way on the city side to incentivize development. The more you build, the more discount you get against the tax bills, because remember, the land has a lower value, unimproved, than with all these large office buildings. Imagine the change in value that have happened here. Now, when this structure came about, there was a great concern in the city council that it was very aggressive. And the bond holders, this whole bond council involved, this whole stuff, it said they would not accept the bonds unless the city initially said the city council would act as a backstop through the city budget to pay bonds if they were not able to be paid. And that is exactly what happened in the first 5 years. Because if you remember that Hudson Yards got approved in 2005, and then we had the crash in 2008, the whole sort of things that happened. So every year the city actually was putting money in to pay these bonds for the subway and for the park because there was not enough revenue coming from the taxes. That changed dramatically, about, I guess, 2010 or was it 2010, and it flipped. All of a sudden now, the revenue's there, the pilots, and now there's money being created for the city over and above the amount to pay the bonds. So this was a little bit risky, but the area took off.
Is the pilot, is it a fixed amount or is it just like? Does it
It grows.
based on like income received from the building?
No, it's super in the regulations of how this whole UTEP works, right? So. it was-
Okay, I guess my question,
Yeah.
can you predict it? Is it like they owe this much in this year, or is it more like traditional taxes where it's a function of like?
No,
the best value of your building?
it's formula based.
Okay,
And you're getting, go back a couple slides to the map. You're getting discounts, right? On how many square foot that you built. And then you get this for a great period of time, see,
a discount on how the property taxes you would have otherwise paid?
that's right. Right, so you're getting a discount in the first 5 million of square feet, 40%. Second 5 million, 20, it steps down and it's a 15-year pilot payment. And then it's a 4-year phase out. It's listen, this pilot structure is very favorable to the developers because the goal was get people to take risks,
Yes,
right? So that was and it's,
and do
it's a little too generous, but it's okay.
the developer have to pay back for the first 5 years?
No, no, it's, they pay the reduced, and then after, I guess it's 19 years, Bob, right?
They're paying that, they're not in pilots.
Hmm?
A lot of the buildings don't do the pilots anymore, but they're paying taxes.
They are, so in other words, it's
Expire.
Cause it's 15 years, yeah.
expiring, right?
This one's expired, the spiral doesn't pay pilots anymore.
So it all depends upon when you acquire, which it's like, it's truly formula based. That's the thing you should remember. It's not like a normal, here's your assessment, blah, 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 whatever.
But isn't that 20% off the assessed value? Not that's super important, but like your assessment matters because it's 20% off the assessed value or
Well,
25%
yeah,
off
but
the assessed value.
right, 20% of the assessed value, but then it's, your assessed value is less, so your taxes are less, your pilots are less. The assessed value determines the pilot payment.
Yes,
So but he's asking every year, there's a new assessment done, like a regular.
like a regular. property
Regular
tax.
Department of Finance, everybody gets assessed, it changes every year.
When the
So
pilot
every
run
year
out, it's a boon to me, because
Right.
their assessed value goes up,
And it's dramatically,
so
it's,
they have to get more money.
Bob speaking as the president of Hudson Yards, Hell's Kitchen Hudson Yards Alliance, right?
Wait, but shouldn't the assessed value be separate from the, like, assessed value is just whatever the, like.
No, it's changed, it's reviewed constantly, an assessed value for a vacant lot
No, I
versus when the
understand,
C of O is like.
but the
like-
pilot's like a discount, like you have an assessed value, you get a taxes calculated based on that, and
The
then.
pilot's actually the
you're-
amount,
you're-
not the discount.
If I could just jump in, you're saying the assessed value is what it is, with or without the pilot,
Yeah, the
right?
assessed value just, it changes because of like the market and the construction over time.
It changes first as the construction, so many of the developers were paying very little until the first C of O was issued on a building.
Almost nothing.
And that could be like 24 months, because it's, right, and then all of a sudden they went from like here to there.
Yeah.
But even so, you still get the discount.
Yes,
Is that helpful? I mean, but it's truly driven by the regulations in the UTEP as opposed to the base.
I
stays the
understand, I
same,
understand.
Right,
It's just not, it's not totally predictable because the assessment will change. The discount will not. The discount is predictable, but the
Correct.
assessment will change year on year in ways that are not entirely predictable.
right,
So,
yeah, I.
Okay.
Yeah, is that helpful?
Yep.
Okay, so you go to the end now. Next slide, yeah. So now, here's the related companies. So in Western Rail Yards, which was not part of the UTEP, which is the discounted pilot area, it was always thought that eventually they would come into it, right? Now, the UTEP has been amended. And here's go back to that very first slide. No, all the way back. Yeah. The organization that does that, the authority, is the New York City Infrastructure Development Study. They're the ones who determine the taxing areas, what counts or doesn't count. They took that action in November of this year.
Of last year.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, November of last,
2020.
November of twenty
back
twenty-five.
to the future.
Yes. Okay, let's go to our background now on WRY.
Can we stop at the map for 1 second?
Yep, go back to the map.
Click forward to the map from second line. So where it says Marshall Yard and Western Rail Yard, it's outlined in yellow. That what Joe is saying is the IDA expanded that red line out over the western.
Just to the western, to my knowledge, we have not been able yet to get we have the IDA minutes, but trying to get clarity on that.
But no map, but that.
No map, right?
They said they expanded to include Western Rail Yard, but there's no specific map we've seen yet. But the UTEP is now expanded across the Western Rail.
Yes,
Which
yes.
is why this now becomes important.
Right.
And so just to
Yeah.
clarify what you're saying, Paul. So we don't know if the Marshall Yards or the block south of Western Rail Yards is a part of the UTAP.
Yeah, I don't know that.
We don't know.
It's straight properties, right? I just kept it out.
Yeah,
I know,
but we do know Western Rail Yard.
But this map actually comes from the IDA or from HYIC or DC? HYDC, so.
And just for some historical context. Why was Western Rail Yards not included in that original?
Because there was a stadium proposed there.
Oh, okay.
At that point in time.
And it was gonna take so many years to build the eastern rail, this one wasn't, that's a long time.
I mean, but I will say, even at that point, it was talked about, what do you do in the future, remember, there was a whole huge plan.
Yeah.
To redo the Western Rail Yards when the stadium failed, there was a planning process, there was there was a ULURP, so eventually that would happen, right?
There was a school, there was open space.
Yeah, all kinds of stuff included in the ULURP. All right, now let's go back, now let's go to Western Rail Yards and give some broader background on that. Because these two things tie entirely together.
It's a slideshow.
Close the door, or does it get too hot in there?
It should not get too hot, but if it does, just crack it in. Close it, close it. Yeah. Behind you too. Now, these items are in the Dropbox now. They're done, finished, released today and later this afternoon.
Yeah.
So you can study them. There we go. You make that a little bit bigger, you think? So here's the background. In 2009, the Western Rail Yards was rezoned and there was a points of agreement. It's on the community board's website between the related companies, the mayor's office and the council speaker. And it included the following things. Private financing of the West. Okay, thanks. That first sentence is incorrect. It's not the platform. It included private financing of the Western Rail Yards platform, the school of 750 seats, open space, and 431 units of affordable housing. Now, you'll see later, there were many other commitments that were made by the mayor's office or by the speaker's office or HPD that are not part of what Related was doing. This is what Related was doing. And then in 2025, the new Western Rail Yards came through this committee, and there were amendments made to the POA about specific development commitments. Now, there were many changes to the uses and whole layout. Remember, there was a casino when we first saw it coming through, right? But there was also an underlying change in the financing. Prior to this, every single public improvement or community benefit was financed by Related, because that was the back and forth, upzoning, change, do this, office space, whatever it is. So the major change that happened was that the New York City Council in the fall of 25, and for the first time, the council and the mayor included access to an IDA bond, meaning expanding that UTEP area, right? For public financing as a part of the Western Rail Yards project. So the first action is the map we just saw, and that was to expand to take in the Western Rail Yards and the marshalling yard, right? We have to verify if the marshalling yard is included. Keep going down. And let's go all the way down, next page. Right, so this was to create a pot of funds at HYIC to service bonds, which HYIC would issue. So again, the IDA takes one action, which is expanding this boundary, but the actual agency that issues the bonds is HYIC. In the past, the bonds were done for two uses. The number 7 line extension, which Bob was 1.2 billion, and then acquiring and developing Belabsec Park from 34th up to 39th Streets.
Which we're still doing.
Right. So we've done the first 3 blocks, not the next 3 blocks, but the money's there, the bonds are there, it's all done, right? So.
Can I pause there for a second?
Absolutely.
Point out the significance of that statement.
Yeah.
Is that the bonds were issued for infrastructure and property acquisition only.
That's right.
Wait, so the money that is raised via the issuance of the bond, does that go to Related or the developer?
No, so that's the point. Paul and I had a great conversation today. The Eastern Rail Yards, not one penny of bond funds was used for the Eastern Rail Yards.
Well, okay,
Period.
if you, like the purchase of the land for Belabsec Park.
That was condemned by the city of New York, by the Parks Department, and purchased through a condemnation proceeding, and there were funds for acquisition. Yes,
So Related did not.
they were not involved at all.
Okay,
HYDC did them.
Everything, the number 7 line and the park were done by Hudson Yards Development Corporation. They got the money from HYIC, but they did the contracting, the tending, the Parks Department was involved.
Okay.
Like
no, I just.
Bob and I worked, I couldn't even tell you.
That clarifies, the city did those things, not the developer.
Right, the city, meaning part of it was HYDC, because they're the development corporation to do this.
Yeah,
The Parks Department was involved, but HYDC built there's like, make it clear, there's multiple layers here. But it was set up so that this public authority would build, they could do it faster and quicker than the city of New York itself.
And HYC really gets run by OMB.
Right, and they report to OMB, that's another agency that's involved in this thing. So like you can imagine.
Management and budget,
Yeah.
for those of us who are not used to acronyms, thank you.
Right, and every step of the way, huge public discussion, what the park was gonna be designed about, how it was gonna be done, all kind of stuff, period. Now, on September 22nd, HYIC voted at their board meeting and approved an amendment to extend the Hudson Yards UTEP to include WRY. I didn't realize that both authorities have taken action. right? And then at that meeting, the then controller Brad Lander voted against it, saying there's insufficient information about the proposal, it had been rushed, and he felt that there was not a reasonable estimate of the project. And I will note that the former staff member for OMB, Nate Bliss, was now in the mayor's office, and he, in the minutes, is very clear, no, we can do, like, he gave a lot of the substance as to why this should be done now, right? So now I want to make that, the reason I said that is because he's in the mayor's office representing the Mayor Adams person, different angle before, right? However, they approved it on September 22nd. And then the IDA voted to approve the amendment. So these two agencies, these two authorities had to both vote properly legally to do this. Okay, now, here's the part that it gets kind of complicated or interesting. The financing purposes were amended. You could only use for infrastructure improvements, and it was very specific, the park, and the number 7 train. It was clearly put in the council resolution, and that's council resolution 960, is that correct, Maya?
Mm-hmm.
960, that now there would be permitted uses to include the platform, which the community board did opine on. It felt like that was the lady came to our committee board many times and said the changes that happened from eastern rail yards to western, the increase in steel prices, the construction prices, the engineering they had to do because of the building of the rail yard, they learned so much. Like they're related sometimes comes and presents a false narrative, but this one was a clear narrative. Like there were many things. So we said to them, so why don't you try to get public financing for the platform? Because that's a good thing, right? But in exchange, we want some more affordable housing. That was the whole back and forth. So the platform was included, but for the first time in this resolution 960, they expanded it further and said that the open space, the school, and the MTA lease payments would be eligible costs under the bond. I want to take these in pieces. The school related had agreed to in 2009 to pay from its project's private financing as a both community amenity negotiated the points of agreement, but also because there was a mitigation under EIS. The open space open space was not the points of agreement. It was in the original ULURP because they had to do it to meet the open space requirements for this kind of development. In the ULURP are items about open space, how it's managed and that kind of stuff, you know. And then what about the lease payments? Basically, Sanford, you go to the bank to get a mortgage to buy a co-op, and the co-op gives you the cost, the bank gives you the cost of the co-op, and they give you the cost of all the mortgage payments that you have to make. That's what this is analogous to. So now an approved use of capital bond funds is for related to pay its payments to the MTA. So the city public authority, HYC, is floating this bond, and then the payments on that don't get paid by related, but from the bond. And that money goes to the MTA. So the city's borrowing money to make related payments to the MTA.
City is paying the state.
Yeah, and we have costs for, you know, bond money ain't free, right? So that's a really odd one in this whole thing. That all changed in the day the city council approved 960. And that had not been discussed. Paul, there were a number of us involved in Western Rail Yards all through the summer that had never been brought up, nor the school, nor the open space.
Is 960 the ULURP resolution or is that separate?
It's the ULURP resolution.
Can I ask?
Yeah.
In that ULURP resolution, obviously the idea of the casino was killed.
That was well prior.
What changes were made in the final ULURP in terms of like the actual zoning, separate from the financing?
The changes that were agreed earlier on were increasing the number of units from 431 units, eastern and western, to 625 units. And minor things like shifting away from the high line, things like that, you know, like these were the things we sort of struggled with in our community board review and our land use review.
More affordable housing out of that, yeah. They altered the affordable housing numbers.
No, it went from 431 to 625, that's it. Trust me, I've looked at this 10 times,
All right.
and I'm still not quite sure of it, because part of it's already been built.
That wall highline.
There's a lot of highline, there are a lot of highline things about separation. Remember, everyone came and talked about the close to the highline. These were like the zoning.
But yeah, I guess, so new requirements were added for related that they didn't have before. I'm assuming, given that they chose to proceed with the ULURP, they got something. Was it just the financing, or did they get like
Well,
zoning concessions?
no, use concessions, once the casino disappeared. In the end, they ended up with many more millions of square feet for office space than for
Okay,
residential.
not a
space.
total. Okay,
Right, well, that was definitely issues to the community. The more residential, if it's built as rental housing, there's always gonna be an affordable component.
yes, I was just trying to understand why they proceeded with the ULURP. Now I understand, okay.
Oh, no, they proceeded with the ULURP because they wanted to build either, if you remember the original ULURP, they said if the casino doesn't happen, we'll build office space. So that's what they got.
And they got more office space.
Right.
And did they get more residential as well?
No,
I thought they did that. Well, whatever.
no, the residential was reduced from the office space originally. The office space, additional office space reduced to
I
residential.
think you got more affordable units, but there's less units altogether.
There's less units than originally planned, but the affordable units went from 431 total, eastern and western, to 625. That number I know is clear.
Okay,
So it's not like, I think it was like 364 on the eastern, on the western rail yards. But unfortunately, when the press release came out, they made it sound like it's 364 to 625. Well, no, a bunch already exist on the eastern rail yards. So it was a net number. It was one of those like, this all happened very fast, right? But now go further. The negotiations at the end of the day were taken, our council member was not as participatory toward the end, became the city council speaker and the mayor's office directly involved. And that I know factually, I was involved in it, and I was going to inform that multiple times. So now here we are, this thing is approved. Go down to the next paragraph. So in that September 2025 board meeting of HYIC, there are comments from the Office of Management and Budget saying that it will not be included in the debt service costs of the bond. When I read that first, I took that to mean, oh, they got surprised and said, no, the related's got to keep on paying for this as they already agreed. However, on December 15th, at the next HYIC meeting, it's noted the public school will be funded by the City of New York and the School Construction Authority, as opposed to the developer. And this is what we just learned in the last day, because we were able to now pull these, it takes time to figure out what the minutes are in the agencies and whatever and pull it down. And that to me, that happened on December 15th, with 15 days left or 16 days left in the Adams administration. So that meant it's a 750 seat school. The construction cost between 80 million and 100 million to do that. That was taken out of the bond, giving a lot more flexibility to relate it to this. I won't editorialize at all, just keep on reporting. Editorialize at the end. Let's go down. A question so far is that what that meant or, okay. So these community benefits and this mitigation, they were part of their private financing cost. They're now instead being funded by, it's not the IDA bond, it's the HYIC bond. And that gets paid for by the tax revenues, the pilots that would normally go over here to the Department of Finance, instead they go to HYIC. And therefore, the public financing is paying all those improvements, plus the MTA lease payments. That effectively reduces related to land cost to zero. I think we've sort of, in figuring this out or trying to understand it, have realized there's some problems here with this.
related building school or not anymore?
They have always said they would build a school. It is in the restricted declaration.
No, who's actually like doing that construction?
Well, the problem is it's not a school building alone. It's the base of a residential building.
Okay,
So there's no way it can be built separately from a building.
but they're building it, but we are, like, the city is paying for that part of it.
It is 100% unclear.
Okay.
To go back to, but let me see if I can help answer that question. In the 2009 agreement, they were going to finance the construction and manage the construction of the school.
And sell it to the
The
school
bond-
construction authority for $1.
The bond that they just negotiated in summer 2025 was going to be used to fund the school. But now we're finding out in December 2025 that that has now been removed and put back onto the school department to build. And that's where this is.
It's even odder, because I mean, I don't know how you build this. When a school is part of a building, it's not unusual. With the school construction authority, you have a developer, they build a school, new building, right? They do a whole thing. Now, they don't outfit it, but they do the core and shell of the school. And then they turn it over to the SCA and they do the, you know, the painting, the flooring, that kind of stuff. So that was a normal thing. So that was a major community benefit that was negotiated in 2009 that now the public treasury is paying for.
Your other question.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know the answer, Paul. December 15th. HYIC, do we have who's on HYIC? Is the council member a member?
No, the speaker is.
There's the mayor is, OMB is,
Controller.
controllers.
So do we know why they made that decision? December 15th?
I will tell you, I don't know why they made the decision to include the already agreed community benefits as part of the financing. It's one thing to say, as a lady came to us with a compelling case, this platform is just so expensive and so complex and the cost of ballooned. We need help to build the land, right? And we encourage them on that. But to come and say that all the benefits they already agreed to are now not going to be in a simple way on their dime, but the public dime, that's a problem. And the fact that the language changed in the final count, the initial council resolution did not say school open space lease payments. It's one line, and there's a document in the Dropbox, you'll see we've highlighted it, where those lines were changed. So I think what's important here to understand in the public process, it is not uncommon for various government or private players to try to amend language that has huge consequence down the road.
At the end of the administration.
At the end of the administration and at the point, and we know that the mayor's office directly engaged with the speaker's office on this
But I think that's getting to the crux of what I think we
Yeah.
want to talk about once we understand the process. I think you've raised the question.
Yeah.
Right,
So, you want to continue?
right, yeah. That's the end of this document, right? No, yeah, so materials, right? So in the Dropbox is the 2009 ULURP, the 2009 points of agreement. And then these are enforced through a document called a restrictive declaration against the land. That is a multi-page, 200-page document that is recorded. And it says every single commitment, who does what, and then has a bunch of attachments to it. So for example, the school, there's a letter from the school construction authority to relate it, they countersign whatever, and it says, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do that, and we can't change this, let's get this. And end of the day, we're constructing it and we're selling to you for $1. It says that. So I don't know how things can be changed so quickly because restrictive deck is on the property. You gotta go and amend that whole thing, right? Then for 25, we have the ULURP points of agreement, the amended and restated restricted declaration. So we haven't been able to look into that one yet because these are multi-page, 100-page documents. And then the council resolution 960, right? There are different commitments in different documents. So let's go to 960 first. This is where the change first happens. And I don't, Maya, do you remember the date of adoption on this? Yeah, it's August or something, maybe, August or July. So it says the council received a request from the project sponsor. That's what it says. Related has reported, there's a lot of press interest in this, and Related said, we have never requested anything, we never asked for anything. However, this clearly documents that they made the request to expand the description of authorized purposes for the pilots. The platform, I think we're in agreement with. No one talked about the open space, the school, or the payments to the MTA. And that is what was adopted, and they note that in that resolution that the pilot agreement will include these provisions. So I just note our council member was there, this got missed, he has to deal with this, but the speaker was also there, and she's gone, right? So we have both two elected officials and negotiated this with the mayor, and he's gone. It clearly gave a much greater financial benefit to Related as developer that was not disclosed at all during the public process. Keep going down. Yeah, no, that's just, yeah, and then we attach the minutes, so you can look at that. Of all these corporations, it documents the actions, what happened, that kind of stuff. Let's go to the charts.
They were incredibly boring meetings. They're really boring.
Oh, yeah, we've been there.
The decisions occurred before you even get to the meeting. They're just
Yeah.
voting yes or no, and that's it.
Only the controller asked the question, then controller. Now, we put together this chart, which you must make bigger for people to see. You don't see the whole thing, it's gonna be a problem. As big as it gets. Let me just note what it is, then you can look at it clearly on your own. We've taken every commitment. The category and the type of commitment, and then noted who is responsible, whether it's the New York City, the council, the mayor, or Related, whether the funding for that commitment was public or private. And then the 2025, which is more complicated, same thing, who's responsible, Related, the public or private funding, and then specifically, was it completed or what's the status of it today, right? Go further over. And then, where is the document location of all these commitments? Certain things are in the ULURP approval. Certain things are in the restrictive declaration against the property. Certain things are in the points of agreement. And sometimes there are more than one location. So this is your guide when you're sitting at home to look through this to understand how this all breaks out. Yeah.
Are the points of agreement legally binding?
Yes, they're signed by Related, they're signed by a deputy mayor, and they're signed by the city council speaker. That's pretty binding because a lot of the points of agreement are then further embodied in the restricted declaration. And that's against the property, you know?
I read around it, and it says in it that the amended restrictions apply to this.
Right.
Specifically says.
So, for example, there's an item that was about the anti-demolition commitments that we got secured. That's the mayor and the council speaker signed it. And then the city, HPD and city planning put that in action, right? So that means there's no money attached to it. It's not in a restricted debt because it would have been Related, has nothing to do with it. It's the items that Related is responsible for are in the restricted declaration. That's really the key part of it.
Well, I have a question. If Related is getting money upfront for the schooling and everything else that they do not pay out of pocket, is it fair to say whether they're going to be paying more or less? Because we don't know what the leasing fee that they're gonna be paying back to the city to MTA over a longer period of time.
No, they have a lease with the MTA. It's all fixed. It's online. It's against the property. You can see that.
So
And we can pull that
those
out. And
payments
drop
could
it.
actually supersede the cost of the school, right? Depending on how many lease payments they're making back to MTA, so the city could actually make a profit out of that.
The city will make money, whether the city makes money overall is separate from the question of however much money the city would have made is now less.
That's right. I mean, like the whole key thing here is,
I mean, upfront that might make sense, but if the school costs $80 million to make and they're gonna be paying $20 million a year for 20 years. They're gonna get more than the 80 million that they.
no, they're not getting it. The bonds are getting it. It is not going to the general tax coffers. That's the big difference here.
But the point is, it's regardless of,
Right.
like, yes, if the assessed value goes up and the taxes are higher, even with the percentage off, great, the city makes more money, or they make more money, whatever, but it's still the public always ends up with 80 million less than they would have.
If
It depends on where the money's going. If it's going to a bond, if they're making it split in times 3 and grow, they can use that money on other projects.
no, they can't.
What do they sell the bonds to?
The bonds are to bondholders, and the bondholders put up capital, and the capital is used for the projects. And then the bondholders get an interest payment. It's not as if they can take additional money and put it somewhere at all. And I think the other issue here bluntly is that it's very common across the city when there's a rezoning, there's a negotiation for some public amenity, right? Like a school or a park or something. That means the city's treasury saves money. Instead of taking that and using it as tax revenue, they just, the school construction authority builds by issuing its own bonds too. So they have to issue more bonds because this is now no longer a privately financed school building. The park was in the original 2009 ULURP, not as a point of agreement, in the ULURP, and it's in the restricted declaration. Related had to deliver that park. It's very complex budget specifications with its square footage and this and that. They will build it, but they're not paying to build it. All these things were project costs.
But they're paying to lease the land that it's on, even though they're not building the building.
No, they were always,
So if the school is built on related property that they have to pay tax on it, they still have to pay for the. You know, land taxes and everything else.
no, they pay the pilots, not regular assessments. And a school as part of it will never, it'll probably be condoed out, will never be part of a tax bill. Ever.
Conduit out and give it to.
Yeah, it's the,
Construction.
the letter of agreement with the school construction authority says it gets condoed and it gets sold to the school construction authority for $1. So that's not even an issue for related going forward. We want to listen, they build a school, we have to protect them, they shouldn't pay taxes on that. That's square footage at all. But I think Stanford's point is like the broad issue. There were a number of items.
The money into the government is the pilots.
Mhm.
Plus, I guess to the state, but the MTA lease fee. And that money is a certain amount, which is not affected, like that amount in is not affected by this change.
Correct.
What changes is now,
The government coffers are putting more out.
yes, that's the only difference.
Right.
In unchanged, out is
And-
now $80 million or 100, or the cost of the school more out.
And also the cost of the park is now being built through a public financing mechanism, not through the private, which had already been agreed to, which they felt was totally. They have never asked for this until this last couple of months. I never saw this. Yeah, okay, yeah.
So I think it.
Also, one more piece. Although this actions have now been approved by HYC and IDA, they're subject to a bunch of conditions. Related must have an anchor tenant. There's like 5 or 6 conditions. So this is not done, finished. The fat lady is not sung at all because this can't be put into effect until these conditions are met. The issue I want to raise specifically is that Related was dead specific that they could only increase the number of affordable units from 431 to 625 because the budget could not manage anymore, no way. And they came to say this publicly over and over. There's 2 ways to go here. One is there's a huge windfall to the developer because they are now not privately financing and carrying the freight of the open space, the school. And certainly it is questionable whether there should be capital expense for lease payments. That's a private transaction between the MTA and Related, and that should be not in the public treasury at all. So 2 ways to go, right? Either let's go revert back to what was there, or if this is the deal that's going to be done, this administration should seek to capture much more affordable housing.
Revert back to what? Specifically.
The deal that was approved in 2009 related to all of the community benefits at its own expense.
Right.
I think I recommend our board support the use of the the bonds for the platform, because that was the big issue to get this project going, right? And that's a reasonable thing. It's very expensive, but do it, let's get something built, right? But case 1, if the bond's gonna be used for other community amenities already agreed to now they're not paying for, we should definitely seek more affordable housing. Or revert back to let them pay for these amenities. And in any case, the lease payments should not be part of capital financing. That is a very odd, very unusual thing.
So that's what, Sanford's point to me was that as I was digesting it, this is what it came down to me is the city is essentially losing $100 million because of this negotiation between the combination of the school and the park. And then the Related is now getting their lease payments, utilizing a capital bonding program to support lease payments. And that just didn't make a lot of sense to me. Now, this has already all been technically approved, but as Joe points out,
Subject to.
there are conditions that have to be met. They have to have an anchor tenant before IDA will actually issue the bond. So the bonds haven't been issued yet, but the structure has been put in place for them to issue it. So what we're talking about is, with a new mayor and a new speaker and a new comptroller, right? All the 3 of the 5 members of the board that makes these determinations to go to them and say, look at this negotiation was done at the end of the year, at the last piece of the administration of the last administration. We urge you to go back in and
Re-examine.
renegotiate, re-examine, and as Joe points out, bond for capital improvements, bonding for the platform makes sense. For the school, that's part of the original community benefits. Don't forget, the rail yards related received additional development rights and zoning alterations because of the community benefits they were going to pay for. Now they're not paying for them and they're coming out of the bonding. So let's go back to just the platform bonding, and take the other things out and have related continue to meet their previous commitments. Or as Joe pointed out, if they do want to bond, say the school, which is another physical capital improvement, then in exchange, we increase the number of affordable units on the site.
Right, if money got over here or there, so Jesse talked to me this afternoon, he said, I didn't realize this, that every time in our district we bring up the need for more school seats, it's immediately jumped, Related's gonna build this school.
It is, and it comes up on the school.
Yeah, it constantly comes up, right? And it is pushed that it's gonna happen, because I would set up, it's supposed to be building one. So the first building in the ground contains the school, that was our whole lever we put in there to make sure it happened.
And it seems like, it seems that what they did is they said, okay, we'll take the school out of the bonding process. But instead of putting it back onto related, they put it into the school.
That I was shocked at that.
And that just happened. We just found out that one too. So I think the goal of this discussion is to say, write a letter to the new team.
Right,
Elected
electeds.
leaders and say, can you please revisit this before it actually happens? And that's, so Sanford, then Kevin, and then JD, I know you have a question.
Yeah, I was just gonna agree on the financing side, it makes by far the most sense for the city to bond the platform because that is the riskiest part.
Absolutely.
Where the state will be able to, like, the interest rate differential between what the city will be able to
The
get.
public bond
versus
market versus, yeah.
Related will be able to get, might be very large for the platform. I suspect it would be less large. Once the platform's built, it's just a regular development project. I would not
The
expect that
platform's-
large a gulf in the interest rate, so the city assistance.
They
is
quoted it was
valuable.
1.2 billion, right? And if that's the case, a difference of a point or quarter points in interest rates are huge.
But also just if you're a bank, like the platform is risky.
Mhm.
Once the platform is built and it's just land that they're building on, those are less risky projects in the first place, so the value of having government.
It's like Battery Park
backed
City, the state built the land out into the river, and then they were financing.
I will clarify slightly on that point though, Sanford, the building of the platform is not going to be like, they're gonna build a platform, they're gonna build on top, the construction will be integrated, so it's not as if. They're gonna fund the construction of the platform, but that construction will happen at the same time that the buildings are put on top of it. It's not two separate steps, it's one step, but the costs of building the platform to support the buildings. But I just wanna be clear that the construction.
Yeah, no, I still think the point stands about like the
Yeah,
greater
but it could be
value for the
separate.
riskier part of the
Right.
project.
Correct.
They may build it in
Like
phases, but it still has greater value. It had.
Like greater savings.
Savings,
How
right,
much have
greater
we paid the
savings,
banks and bondholders.
Exactly, because.
So I'm just clarifying points. The 2009 points of agreement was a legally binding document, again, between whom?
Related, city council speaker and the mayor.
Okay. And what just occurred in late 25 was,
City council speaker, mayor, related.
so that last agreement, we believe has a legal authority, since it's later in time, to supersede the preceding agreement.
Well, no, the problem is that resolution 960,
Mhm.
that is not consistent with what happened on the December 15th HYC meeting. So what happened in 960, it added in the school, the lease payments, and the open space. Right?
Which count as the 2009 points of.
No, 960 is 2025. The council resolution in 2025 in the summer,
Right,
resolution 960,
right,
amended what the authorized uses could be.
okay,
But they couldn't do that without the authorizations from the IDA and from HYAC, right? And then further, we just found out yesterday, that was further amended to take out the school construction on December 15th of this past year from the bond. So it just says to you that there was a rush here, and sometimes when you rush, you don't.
the reason, I was doing some research on the fly. Found from 2024, where, as it was reported, a representative from Related made a proposal at this committee saying that they would follow the plan and the points of 2009, which included affordable housing, a new school, and open space.
That's correct.
Yeah.
And
But they told us.
And they told us because that's what they signed and agreed to fund
Well, more than
themselves.
told us, that's what's written.
Oh, it was, yeah, by the way, and there's a document, and it is in the Dropbox too. Related sent us a letter, or the board a letter that has a 2009 versus 2025. On their letterhead, signed by them. And you'll see that in the Dropbox, and this is very different than what they put in writing.
JD,
Yeah, I don't know if this makes sense.
Democracy dies in darkness, that's the story there.
Well, I have the Washington Post.
That's okay.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah.
It's not guys. You put the choice between more affordable housing or the original agreement.
Mhm.
So if related. This may not make sense, but if related said, sure, we'll do more affordable housing, because that's actually gonna be cheaper for us to do.
I have no idea.
I don't either, than the school.
No, not then the school, then the school being paid for by the public treasury.
Right. So I would figure that out.
Well, I think,
the school is being built.
Right,
The plan is the school is being built, whether it's privately financed by Related and they do it, and they do the, or if it's publicly financed through bond, and then they do it, or now the current proposal is school's construction team does it independent of all of it. And so either go back to the original plan of it is part of their responsibility,
they're related.
they're being related, their responsibility, or if they wanna bond the school. Then we say, if we wanna bond the school, then we want more affordable units.
right, I'm trying to figure out which.
I guess,
Which affects the.
well, we don't even, here's the problem, we don't know. We didn't even know if the school construction authority was consulted before this action happened on December 15th of 25.
But I
And
think,
you've gone to multiple meetings where they keep talking about related building the school.
Not ugly.
I have.
This is.
Yes, just also to clarify,
Mhm.
when we talk about going back to the original 2009 agreement. The 2009 agreement doesn't include the pilots for the platform, but we're saying the platform stays regardless of what we do. The items that we're concerned about are the school, the land lease, and the open space.
Yes.
So those three items. You'd like either taken out of the pilot altogether and Related is
Right.
responsible for them, or for those three items. We might request more affordable units.
I just think, I think we want to request that this mayoral administration and this new city council speaker and controller take a serious, deep, hard look at this to determine what happened.
Could we leave the mayoral administration out of it?
No.
The Speaker and the.
No, because the mayoral administration has the majority. So I just want to say that, and the reason I brought up the housing units is because I know that's their interest too. Like, one way or the other, we should not be spending this scare with a $12 billion budget deficit, right? And all of the various agencies and public authorities that have to deal with that, they're all gonna be asked to make cuts, right? So this is a moment that, I'm sorry, Related should step up to the plate like they already had. And getting the platform built, I think we have unanimity of the various different stripes of folks in this room and on the broader board. That just gets the land built so something happens, right? I think we want something to happen. But the idea that when you came with that and then you just dumped in all your other commitments really sounds greedy. That's my first editorialize.
I mean, I think we have to look at 2000.
No, opportunistic.
I think 2009 was a much different time in New York City than it is today. I mean, we're talking about before COVID, we're talking about, I mean, obviously rents are still crazy and obviously the building and construction, everything is skyrocketed. So I would like to see what their plan is. Maybe it's better than what they proposed in 2009, but Related should show us.
No, all the plans are the same.
Oh, they're not changing them because they.
No, whatever changes happened as part of the ULURP, none of that gets affected whatsoever. This is about the means and methods to finance it.
Okay, because when they came with the casino, they totally changed and gave us a different layout and format.
That all got thrown away.
If it got thrown away, then what is their
But Related,
new plan with these benefits? And so we can make a.
We saw
Balance on what they're spending versus.
the school never changed at all. It's always been the same.
It's no office
The-
space.
It's more office space and the open space still stay the same. square footage configuration, and we lost the used walls against the.
But the residential went down from the original plan to
Correct.
the casino plan, so now they're not gonna add any additional
No,
units.
the residential went down for the casino plan or office plan, when the casino failed, it became the office plan. So there are a huge decrease in the number of residential units here, yes.
Didn't we get one additional, at the conclusion of it, didn't we get one residential tower and two commercial towers instead of the casino? So they had those four residential.
I think what we should do is to really answer these questions,
Just look it up.
go back and do the compare and
Yeah.
contrast plans, because they're all there.
The-
And it all got settled by the time we got to city planning.
Right, so but the site plan that does not include the casino was a plan that we have all had seen.
That was the alternate plan.
That was the alternate plan without the casino, and that was what went into city council. ULURP process always revises what we.
And the only
Where the
cha-
first step, it goes to borough president, goes to city council, goes to mayor, changes. But the bulk of that site plan is consistent and stays.
And the only
same.
changes around
The only
that,
changes are how it's being funded for the.
no, but also the only changes were like it's further from the high line, like all those things that we were back and forth trying to negotiate for everybody.
Yeah.
They're not material to the.
But this is,
Wow.
like, just to be clear, relative to the 2009, like zoning. This is a favorable change for related, separate and on top of like
Yes.
the payment stuff. The
Yes.
zoning, they believe they can make more money.
They got
from
more
building.
commercial FAR than was allowed in the 2009, let me make it clear. 2009 zoning said commercial or residential could be mixed. But the restricted declaration and the plan that was approved locked it in to residential because there were sites in it that only could build residential.
Joe, if I follow you, you're suggesting we have a choice, either revert back to the 2009 Pontoon agreement. Or use this to have related pay for something.
Yeah, let me try to make it even more specific. Number one, that we say that we support the use of the bond for the platform. I think that's clear, right?
Right.
Number two, we do not support the use of the bond for MTA lease payments. That should come out no matter what, period, because that's just not appropriate.
Right.
And then the 3 and 4 go together, the schools and the open space. To ask the administration, to look at this overall deal to determine what makes more sense, because
Or if the city's gonna do that, then related picks up and puts forward more affordable housing.
right, no, that the city requests, we require related to put more affordable housing,
Request or require?
require,
Or,
because
or they pay. Or, so if they're gonna keep it, you're saying, you're giving related two options, or you're giving two options here. Keep the platform.
No, keep
Regardless.
the platform no matter what.
Regardless of anything, keep the platform.
No,
The other
no
one-
lease payments, no matter
So
what.
those are the two regardless of anything.
That's right,
Those stay.
that's the way to get, that helps.
The big,
Delta,
yeah, the option A versus option B. Option A is. We keep the school and the open space bonded. But that costs or equals more affordable units. Option B is we take the school and.
open space, give it back
open space
related,
And related pays for that. And that doesn't generate.
right,
Yeah.
but there's a corollary, and in no case should the school construction authority
Mhm.
be taking its citywide resources to build this school here.
So I'm just putting forward a suggestion, looking at our statement of district needs as guidance. Consistently, the three top issues, they juxtapose with, it's public safety, which we won't get into here, affordable housing and quality of life. Because affordable housing, year after year.
100%.
I suggest we find a way to push forward and get additional affordable housing.
My answer is, we're not gonna press for it, we asked them to look at the two options,
Right.
determine what can yield more one way or the other. Because the truth of it is, there's so much happening here in the financing part, like, I'm concerned that with these cuts come into the budget. Who the hell knows what's planned that can't happen?
Maybe I think a negotiation where it's half and half and they split the cost and then get more affordable housing.
Not a clue, that's, but give it to them to seriously look at it, and given the fact that there's, like, the whole new team. The mayor,
Do we need a motion?
yeah,
Hold on, please, hold on.
One more question.
Let's see, make sure all the questions are answered.
I want to make a motion, but
Oh.
Kevin, go ahead.
No, I do need a motion. Well, you might want to.
I'm gonna check online.
Online first.
See if anybody else in the
Yeah,
room
we've
wants
got
to
the room
comment
so
from
far.
the audience. So, anybody else in the room want to make any comments from
I
the
just want to
public?
comment. Joe, how did we find out about this? There was no open discussions,
Can you just pause once again? Anyone online who wants to make a comment, please raise your hand so we can bring you over. Thank you.
but there was no, public hearing.
So I will say that I found out about this in September when Carl Wilson from Eric's office sent the community board, everyone got them, but I read them, a copy of the resolution 960. And I raised this question, how did this happen?
Okay,
And then when we started to think about this further, the board has gotten calls from both Politico and the New York Times about this. And then started to go into the deeper part of it, which is the minutes from the meetings, that kind of stuff. And that's when all this stuff has now come out. Why we spend all this time? We didn't know what it was, We're like, And then I did not know until yesterday that there was a December 15th meeting. That was a whole new kettle of fish.
I'd also like to add some context.
Janine,
Janine, can you pull Layla over for us, please? Some context that Sanford raised, and I'd like to incorporate into letter 2 is this is a net result in a approximately $100 million loss to the city.
or more.
Or more, we don't even know what it is, right? What's the school cost, and what is the MTA payments cost? But that would have been money to the city that's now not coming to the city. So to put it in the context of this negotiation has resulted in a $100 million shortfall.
It's said a different way, is that taking those items out decreases the amount of the bond and decreases the amount of the interest payments, which means there's more money that comes to the city of New York at the end of the day. Because anything over and above the bond payments is revenue to the city. So a lesser bond means more revenue to the city. I'll write that in a careful way.
Okay, all right.
I'll record myself.
Layla,
Hey guys, I just wanna say one thing. Sorry.
I saw Layla's hand, I didn't see Leslie's hand, sorry.
I didn't raise my hand, sorry. I just want to say that first of all, that was an amazing presentation, Joe. I mean, amazing. I mean, I can't even tell you, there is no community board that does this. The depth and breadth of this, the detail, the nuance, and also the understanding, is really, I think it was very, very strong, and it's a strong committee, we all know. But so thank you, Joe, and thank you to the rest of the committee. So Joe said that, he red flagged this late last year for us, and then it was revisited. I had a meeting with some other community organizations about a month ago, and we were talking about this, and then I brought it up to Joe and Paul and Rachel about, what was it, about 3 weeks ago, guys, maybe around there. And we were saying that we just didn't want this to kind of fly under the radar, because even though related in doing this has to go through a quote unquote public process, the public process is very stealth. It's not one of those, it's like a 3-minute thing. No one ever comes. No one makes a comment. And I was just a little concerned that we didn't want to be CB4, didn't want to be caught flat-footed on this. So I thank the committee for being proactive on this, because I think, and Joe, you might have said this, I might have missed it, but I was listening, that Related has to put in a formal application, correct? And then once that formal application is in, it triggers, right? It triggers like the quote unquote public process for this, or am I wrong there?
No, they have to. So we've learned a few things since we spoke last week. First, it's not the IDA issuing the bond at all, right? It is now HYIC, right? At least that's my understanding today. I'm going to do further research on this, right? That's what I got today. And then they have to provide certain conditions that get reviewed by HYIC for this bond to be issued. And those conditions, we will, in a further document, we'll put in the Dropbox, list what they are. They're very, very specific in detail.
For example, they need to have an anchor tenant secured before the bonds will be issued.
Right. And so there's a lot of detail on that. I also want to say just for a moment, Leslie, before we go from you, I'd like us to publicly thank Maya Felton-Hassen from Clinton Housing, our community planner.
Yep.
She did all of this deep research and work that was brutal. Every stone she turned over was another stone to turn over.
Maya, I apologize for all my emails to you to do that. But so wait, I'm just curious. So when does the public commented triggered? The official.
I don't think we actually know yet, and that's one of the problems.
That's what, yeah. So I just like I said, I commend, all of us, but you guys on, I just don't want to be caught flat-footed. And obviously we know where we're going to go from here. I mean, I'm kind of foreseeing the committee's discussion on this and a letter that comes out. So thank you very much, guys, really. Awesome job.
Thanks. So I think that, Leslie, to answer your question, I think it's a lot like other letters that we write. We'll write this to the mayor, the speaker, and the comptroller, and that will be on record. And then, much like every other thing, when an agency does schedule the public hearing, we'll have our record, our stated position.
Exactly.
That some of us could go to that public hearing and reiterate.
Right,
that,
but I think
we have no idea.
I think we should be asking now to meet with the speaker's office, because they're our council
Yeah.
member until April 28th.
Right,
About this,
yeah, that's right.
and I think this is an issue, right? This is an issue.
Yeah. I mean, we're definitely doing this a little bit in anticipation, right? It's definitely a proactive letter than a reactive letter.
Jesse informed me.
Motion to write the letter, so.
No, we still have some.
Let's continue. That's what I'm saying, let's continue.
All right.
Okay, thank you, guys.
All right, Leila?
Thank you so much. So educational, amazing work on the research. Thank you so much for that. Couple of suggestions. Would you consider adding into your letter, making a request to IBO, to the Independent Budget Office, to actually look into the financing and funding scheme as it is, written today? Because they may actually bring another layer of independent review that the controller will certainly bring, but I think having IBO in the room may be a good idea.
Thank you, Leila. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's a good idea.
Yeah, the IBO has helped us before. They were very involved in the stadium process. They look at this separately.
Thank you, Leila. That's helpful.
Yeah, and another quick question, if I can, would it be possible also to suggest that the bonds are non-recourse, meaning that the city or the state are not on the hook, and that Related guarantees the bonds? Because that was the big issue with phase one.
I think that horse has left the barn, because the city agreed on the original bonds to be backstopped because they were not able to be financeable otherwise. And the difference now is that was a high risk, like I mentioned. The city actually paid bond payments for like 5 or 6 years. Now there's excess money coming from the first course of bonds. I think we'd have I don't think we'll be able to do that.
Well, if it's non-recourse, it's unrelated, given that they are generating taxes from phase one, then they can absorb the risk.
But they're not issuing. It's HYIC that's issuing that.
No, I understand that, Joe, but if the bonds are non-recourse, it means that the bonds are being issued by a public entity, but it is the private developer who is on the hook to repay the interest.
Again, I'll just note that we had that fight, quite a heavy duty one, with the first set of bonds, and we lost because of the broader financial implications. I think that adding the IBO to this is a really key thing, because a fresh set of eyes with all these new electeds would help them understand how to proceed. That's like the key thing, but the other one, I don't think it makes sense.
Okay, thank you, Leila.
All right, thank you.
Anybody else?
Anybody else? All right, then, I already asked, that was the online.
Oh, that's the thing.
Yeah, I mean, I can check again, so now, yeah, so I will seek a motion. Did I hear Kevin lining up the language?
No, Jay,
Or do you want me to read the notes and then I can entertain a motion with this?
That's the way to go.
All right, so I would.
I move we write a letter to the mayor and the city council and
Controller.
the controller and Leila's suggestion. Oh, go ahead.
All right, so the content of the letter would say to the mayor, the comptroller, and the city council speaker, that we are in support of bond funding for a platform. We are opposed to bond funding for the MTA lease payment. We want them to scrutinize the bond funding for the school and open space, and either, if it is bonded, create more affordable units on site, or if it's not bonded, required or not bonded, that Related fulfills its previous commitments to the community benefits programs that were already in place.
Second.
And so I need a motion, so that's JD's motion and Kevin's second.
And just want to make one note, what gets me agitated here in general, we go through these incredibly complex negotiations. And not many community boards are able to get a speaker and a mayor and a major developer to sign an agreement, which then gets embodied in a legal declaration. Why would we bother to do this if they continue to want to be unwind and unravel them later? It's an embarrassment to all administrations on this. Make an agreement, you make an agreement. Circumstances change, like we mentioned about the platform. That's a very specific thing. That's a new thing added on. But to say the old ones don't matter anymore, that's just self-serving. So
Oh, about the letter, we're asking them to revisit, right?
yes,
Revisit the already approved structure. So the previous mayor, previous city council speaker approved the structure, and we want them to
I'm sorry.
revisit that structure.
We want them to revisit.
and renegotiate.
September 15th.
No, December 15th.
December 15th, 2025.
And we're not saying you should do A or B, we're saying
A or B.
A or B, we're saying do what's best for the city treasurer.
And note that we have a huge budget deficit. That's the thing we didn't have before.
Although very clearly stated, bonding was okay for the platform, bonding is not okay for MTA, lease payments,
It's a
but that the other pieces could be renegotiated.
Right, exactly.
And within that negotiation, maybe we can extract more affordable housing.
If it's
If that all works, it says, listen,
that way.
like Related could have said, by the way, I don't want the open space in, let the Parks Department pay for it. That's crazy.
And to point out in the letter, we'll add the later suggestion of the
Yeah.
IBO and the actual, come up with some round number as to what this is costing the city.
Try to get
in
more
cash, but like, I suspect it's gonna be around 100 million.
So I don't know, I gotta get some like
We'll find some.
comparables of like, what a school call open, like, I don't want to throw out bullshit numbers like this to be semi bullshit, you know? Just saying.
Okay, so I will call the question. I know you're P and E, so I'm just gonna mark you down P and E. I'm gonna start in the backwards order. P and E, abstentions. I have to switch over to panelists so I can see James. Anybody opposed to the motion? All right, everybody in favor of the motion? Unanimous, thank you all very much. Okay.
Thank you all for listening to that ridiculously
Good.
detailed.
Can you get the slide 3?
Okay, so next item, on the agenda says discussion on a letter to mayor regarding the landmarks preservation commission. This comes from Chelsea Land Use had a presentation from David Alaba, who's here. I'm sure talk on this more. Suggesting that we tell the mayor, give guidance on appointing somebody to the landmarks preservation chair who's an activist preservationist. That committee did not reach a consensus and could not agree on what letter to send. So it then came to executive committee. It then came, well, even amongst the members who were present, there was not a consensus.
But there was still not.
So there was no consensus, there was no quorum.
Wait, which
Then-
committee discussed this? before?
Chelsea Land Use.
Okay.
Then went to executive committee for discussion. Again, no consensus, even though there was quorum, there was no consensus on the letter. It was agreed upon that it would go back to both land use committees because into the full board. And then back from each committee would then jointly write a letter to go back to full board on the issue. So,
What did people dislike about it?
well,
The original letter, I would just
Yeah.
comment, sorry, David, that the board member said it was full of hyperbole, and it was too much. The approach was just too aggressive. That was it.
Is this the first letter?
No, this is a proposed revision. At the full board meeting, I was charged, I made the motion to send it back to the committees.
So this is, okay,
This is a revision
of,
look entirely,
gotcha.
okay? And the revision is about taking an approach. I need to have a document in front of me, somebody.
so.
There you go.
I didn't know that you drafted one, so I didn't read it.
No, it was very recent, it's out of the printer. This is, I also consulted with David on this, okay, and he'll speak to it. It's really just saying that Landmarks is a preservation organization, they've strayed from their mission. And we want you to consider appointments, both commissioners and the chair, of individuals who support New York City's landmarks law and ensure their independence to restore the public's faith in the commission. And there's a broad range of professionals, broad range of kinds of people, preservationists, historians, community advocates, architects, that have a wealth of knowledge and experience here, right? Broad. One more, okay? And then saying that LPC has not been fulfilling their role, because they have, and we cite the issue of the 20th Street house, you know, the oldest house in Chelsea, 4 was 20th Street, that was demolished except for the facade. But most important though, we found things like this. This table on page 2 actually is from the mayor's management report. And it talks about what they designated every year. Fiscal 21, 339 buildings, fiscal 22, 147, fiscal 23, 81, fiscal 24, 164, fiscal 25, 4. That's extraordinary. How they normally really don't work that way, that they have really not engaged with this. And then we've also lost housing units, which is a big issue. Those two row houses in Chelsea, it was a major LPC proposal, and there are 18 units that were lost there to make a mega mansion. And a facade kept and just building behind it. But I think the key thing there is that, you know, landmarks and preservation don't mean communities are frozen in amber. Development and preservation is complementary, and it can both develop market rate housing and affordable housing at the same time. And we gave 2 examples of the Dime Savings Bank in downtown Brooklyn, landmarked building and a 92-story tower next to it, approved by the Landmarks Commission, and our own West Terminal Warehouse, where a very large addition was put on top of the building and worked through our whole committee structure. Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, Jamie.
I think it's a terrific letter. I just want to suggest one addition. I don't know if you want to do this, but there should be some sentence or paragraph about the importance of landmarking in a community. Why is it important? I think the mayor needs to hear this. A short sentence, it doesn't have to be hyperbolic, but something about why landmarking is important. Because it builds more affordable housing and it lowers the rents and it houses the homeless.
That's not hyperbolic at all, JD, thank you.
The general idea, I get it.
I think that, but to answer, I think Bob's question, some of the pushback came from the sort of binary conversation about preservation versus housing development. And one of the things that I would suggest we add to this, because you weren't listening, is that, you know, we have in this district some of the largest areas of historic preservation, as well as the largest development of new housing that goes on.
At the same
So
time, right.
The preservation does not preclude housing, housing does not demolish preservation.
And development in general.
You know, I think we've got to find language, and this letter is going to the new mayor. I personally want to take a more positive tone to the mayor and say, these are opportunities, as the mayor who's advocating for housing, right? The language that preservation denies housing is not true, and I want him to hear that from us, that we have a district that builds housing and preserves. And also the request, and I would put more language in there, but a request for funding, because if you recall during the Midtown South mixed use rezoning, we had asked for delegation.
Funding for LPC.
What?
Funding for LPC.
Funding for LPC, right? Yes, we had asked for more sites to be landmarked, and LPC's response was literally, we don't have the capacity to do that. So they chose, I think, 3 sites out of our 8, or I forget the numbers, right? But it was, if they had more capacity and funding to do the work that we had asked for, maybe more would be done. So my suggestion is to add more language of funding for LPC, and to really stress the importance of a balance, because I think the pushback we're getting from other members of the board and other committees is that it's becoming a binary. Housing destroys preservation and preservation destroys housing. And I think we have to thread that needle.
Or development in general.
Kevin.
I agree with what Paul said. Let me backtrack and say thank you. And thank you for doing the revision. I understand the rationale behind it and the passion where it comes from. You know, and listening to Gail last billboard meeting, sometimes you can get more with honey than you can with something else.
This is more honey here.
There's more honey in here, but I still think I might rephrase a little bit. I'm not usually a big fan of form over substance, but I think with this letter, what I would respectfully suggest is starting off with the why, the narrative, and MCB. I think this still comes across, at least to me, as somewhat of a little bit, not in my backyardish,
Where?
protection. That's just a toenail. That's.
I think.
I'm just sharing my
I
feeling.
agree.
Joe, I'm just sharing my feeling. I have this, it's my individual feeling, right or wrong, it's my individual feeling.
You want it?
I would start off with like MCB4 has a history of supporting housing.
Oh, yeah.
Put a link to our house, we have a housing plan. But as we said, it's not too often we get trapped into it's A or Z. It's not either we're pro housing, therefore, or we're against landmarking, or we're pro landmarking, therefore we're against pro housing. I would reject that premise. And the mayor, I think, is reaching out on multiple fronts of listening to community input, right? On a number of issues. I would hone in on that and say that we hope that you listen to us. We can find a middle ground here on this, right? And I would make an ask in the letter and then follow it up with somebody that we ask to meet with someone from your administration to further discuss this. Otherwise, this is a letter
It's in the ether. Yeah.
that runs the risk of sitting in someone's desk or inbox and there it shall sit as a paperweight. I would take this letter and then say, we will follow up with an outreach to such and such department or so and so. And we look forward to this discussion, working together with your office to achieve the blah, 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 blah. So it's just a question, sometimes,
Check and check.
right, yeah.
Yeah, 100%. So.
Yeah, I mean, I think, I don't know, actually, it's probably the concerns that people raise in other committees. I also have some, I guess I'm not really a fan of this letter. I guess I think it's probably a good thing, like given, as people have commented, like given the overall shortage of housing in the city, which is driven by like
Multiple
the
factors,
challenge, many
not
factors,
landmarking.
including the difficulty of developing new housing.
Right, but it's not.
Let him finish.
Let me finish. I think LP is taking a more skeptical approach. That kind of makes sense. I would also note that presumably they've been landmarking since the 1960s. It would sort of make sense that up front there would be a big, everything that could be justified to be landmarked, like start with the most pressing needs, and then at some point it is going to taper off. And new buildings will be added, but at a slower pace. And then I guess I would say, I think LPC protection is maybe the most aggressive form of protection, which for some build, like the Empire State Building or extreme cases, yes, that is what we need. But I mean, LPC is truly kind of freezing it in. There are many other like zoning tools we have, like, everything from like a street wall rule to, just bulk and height regulations to, you can have rules about like the facade and the appearance of the building. But LPC is the most extreme, like in building, I mean, if you landmark a specific building, you are saying you literally cannot change this building. It must look the same from the street. It's a little bit looser on like a historic district where you can still do some construction, but it has to be within the character of the historic district. But LPC, I mean, by definition, it is the landmark preservation, like protection.
I'm gonna let you continue.
There are like other zoning tools that still preserve sort of character, but are not as restrictive. But LPC kind of by design is like, yes, the neighborhood looks this way today and we want it to keep looking this way forever. That is almost by principle, like we want it, this part of the city at least be frozen amber. And then other thing I would comment is that I saw the line in the letter that 4% of the city is landmark protected. And I think I actually found, I'm guessing the report that is cited from, which is from LPC itself in 2020. And they made some interesting points, which is 20% of Manhattan is actually LPC protected. And then I would also note there are other restrictions on top of landmark protection. There's lots of the city as special districts, not all of which are related to like historic protection, but some are, including our own. So I don't think it's accurate to say only 4%. We actually have quite a bit of the city that is historically protected, especially in Manhattan in some way or another. And we should be careful. Do we want to keep expanding that? Do we want to kind of freeze things in amber, or do we want to be more flexible?
Okay, I'm gonna speak first, please. Just to answer some of the questions, I can hear the people reacting, all right, just so that.
I can see.
Yes, and David, I will promise to call on you. The decreasing rate in this chart is clearly well after 1960.
Yes, it is the last 5 years.
Yes, so that decreasing rate of the last 5 years is a significant decrease that we should be paying attention to as compared to the 1960s launch.
Yes, and I think that is.
I'm gonna deflate your argument on that point for a second. Second thing is on LPC issues, the freezing in time the struggle we often have is that it's, the face of the building is all that's preserved and the insides are not preserved, and that is how we end up with the two row houses that were combined, 18 housing units converted to one house, right? If it was converted to two houses, those would be the original designs, right? So we struggle a lot with the facade issues versus the content issues when we.
Okay, I wanna go back to content and how that relates to housing, but continue.
But how that affects, but I think that the way you're portraying LPC rules as restrictive, it is just the building facades in the streetscape that is that. So some of the points are just a little bit nuanced. I want to just clarify this a little bit, but I'm gonna call the others and I'll come back to you. Okay, so I'm gonna go to Brian, then Joe.
And I think Joe and David will also touch on it. LPC rules do not freeze buildings or districts in time.
You know,
I mean, in the two examples that are noted in this, and I think the terminal warehouse speaks volumes to it, is that you can alter a structure, you can build in a historic district. There's just some layer of oversight that, and it doesn't mean that you can't build a modern building in a historic district, and it doesn't mean that you can't add floors onto a landmark building. That's not it. There's this perception that it prevents any new housing, and that is a fallacy. And so that's just a fundamental misunderstanding about what landmark law is, and I'll let David elaborate.
I mean, the landmark district and all our house is landmark, and you can change them all the time. You have to go through an extra layer.
Let me go in order.
Yeah.
I wanna.
So,
Go to Joe.
yes, I was gonna say, I think it's important we have this conversation. Excise the catchphrase frozen in amber. Cause it's simply not true on how any of these things work, right? If you have a landmark on a larger lot and you wanna build a large building next to it, yes, you must have landmark LPC review. But the example of the Dime Savings Bank, it's a 92-story building. So it's not like it's not frozen. I work with historic properties sometimes, right? And I have a level of review, but I get to add floors, I get to do, I mean, in other words, it's a matter of degree, right? And the thing that has troubled me so much with the last couple of versions of the Landmark Preservation Commission, that these row houses in Chelsea, built in 1830, it should not have just disappeared because there's the front and the back that have to be, dealt with. And it was very much about extremely wealthy people seeking to remove housing units just to create these mega mansions. That we should all have common ground is bullshit, right?
I mean, but again, I'm not gonna say that was good, like, no reasonable person is doing it.
But that's exactly why, I think exactly why I started trying to get this dialogue to be about threading the needle, right? It's not as binary. It's not as if LPC restricts housing and housing destroys old historic buildings.
So like, for example, like,
You have to find
a concrete example, I'm dealing with Hartley House, the preservation of that and the expansion of it. And what I had to do was to build addition out of plywood of, like 2x4 and stuff. So how much could be seen from the street? But our addition is approved, not a problem. Like it's the reasonability part of it. And I think the other part that's important, in our district, we have demonstrated. And by the way, please do not conflate special zoning districts and landmarking. They're separate.
Wait, hold
They're
on.
separate.
We have a special zoning district. And
We have many.
Yes, but let's talk about like the, like Hell's Kitchen Special Zoning District, because I think that's a good example of this.
Yes.
And I like, this is not a negative comment on that district, what I'm saying right now. But the purpose of that special, one of its purposes, is many, but one of its significant purposes is to cause the majority of those buildings to be retained in more or less their current form.
Nope.
The amount you can build is close enough in size, and I mean, like, we have talked about this before. We have explicitly talked about, in the context of the City of Yes discussion, like, now you can build, because of the City of Yes rule changes, you can build 20% more.
Yes.
Or sometimes more than that in certain cases, which has been a concern raised by this board, because the concern is explicitly that it incentivizes development And then it will incentivize people to tear down those buildings and build new ones, which are larger. And like implicitly, the purpose of the current district is not our whole district. We allow huge buildings. We encourage huge buildings on 11th and 12th. But in that area, in the special district, between like 10th and 8th and 10th, we have said, basically, we want maybe some, but we do not want a lot of development. And the way that has been implemented in practice is that, yes, you can in theory build more, but you can't build more than 6 stories. Most of the buildings are 4 or 5. Developers aren't going to do that. So it is effectively, I mean, served its purpose. It has preserved that area. But yes, it's a special district, but it is acting a lot like.
Okay, all right.
I gotta say,
Let's not go to special districts.
I gotta say to you, underlying premise is just inaccurate. When that district was founded in 1973, it was not meant to preserve the buildings, it was meant to preserve the housing units in those buildings because people were being displaced through demolition because of a convention center that was sited for the piers on West 44th Street, right? It was specifically worked out a compromise. There's a preservation area within that district.
So the one
And then-
district has preservation.
Preservation area, and then it has 57th Street, 8th Avenue, and 42nd Street, in which thousands of apartments have been built since 1973. The idea was balance and compromise, right? So therefore, to say that we're gonna focus merely on core blocks, but does not tell the full story or picture. Our community said we were willing to embrace high-rise development on 57th Street, 8th Avenue, and 42nd Street. And at that point, Sanford, there's no high-rise development on those blocks.
All right.
Okay,
Hold on.
I'm not gonna argue with you on intent because I do not have like the committee.
No, but that's how it's
in
written.
front of
No,
me to
no.
make this argument.
But that's how it's
But-
written. The zoning says that. The
But
zoning
I will,
says,
I will point out, the fact that it occurred within the context of a broader agreement, which is like a good agreement, I have no problem with that, that
It's
we're
one
gonna
district.
allow more development in other areas. And we're gonna allow less development in,
Right.
like 8th and 10th Avenue block does not just negate the fact that a large part of the map, and I don't think like was deliberately carved out as a low development area. And I guess I would point out that in other, like this community board did that in the context of this broader agreement of like, we're gonna limit development here, we're gonna allow more here. But like, there are many areas zoned across the city where it was not done like that. It was just done to restrict.
Right, so
That's not our
I'm
case.
hold on, I'm gonna address that issue for a second. I think that is exactly what my point is. The Special Clinton District had a specific idea and concept of preservation and perimeter produced housing. And within our small district of our own, just in the Clinton Special District, we have produced thousands of housing units without disrupting the preservation zone. And I think that's sort of the language I want to focus on this letter, is that historic districts can exist and can coexist with housing production, even within particular neighborhoods. In Chelsea itself, the great historic district that we had a special, there are 2 massive historic districts there. We still have a ton of new housing being built in Chelsea. So I think that's the balance I'm trying to strike. And to your point, the preservation portion of the Special Clinton District has not seen a lot of growth, but within the Special Clinton District, we have seen tremendous growth.
So I want to point is that there are many zoning obstacles to housing production, and we should not look at that 4% number. 4% of buildings or land area is covered by LPC, and we should look at it in the context of it's 4% on top of many other types of restrictions, such as
so we have a new.
such as special districts, not
I
limited
know,
to
but
that.
I know,
even.
we have a very nuanced city that tries to balance multiple interests constantly. We're not in Houston where you can build a 40-story building next to a private home, next to a gas station. Because our density is so intense. And we have density that is unrivaled of anywhere in the nation. And I approve and I support more density with a balance and understanding. So when we did Hudson Yards rezoning, again, we restricted density in certain areas and then said, put more density there. That's why Bob and his members have huge towers on 11th Avenue or 10th Avenue. And the density got directed there, but the mid blocks, the density was lessened. So therefore, every part of this discussion cannot be that we arrived yesterday, there's a housing crisis. There's been an ongoing housing crisis in this city, at least since I came here in 1976, okay?
Well,
But our production in our neighborhood has been dramatic to lead towards solving that. don't think general citywide, that's great for an idea,
LPC is a citywide agency.
Right.
So when
but
the mayor looks at this and does his appointments, he is
I
not,
would-
it's not gonna be made on the basis of. Like, here's how Hell's Kitchen and Chelsea operate, it's gonna be made on the basis of.
Right, but we have.
Yeah, but I
This is a
think
citywide
that's-
agency.
But I think that's the point, is we represent this neighborhood, and we wanna have this neighborhood's voice heard as part of that dialogue he's having about what he's doing.
I mean, how anodyne is this? We ask you to appoint members that are aligned with the mission of the LPC under the charter to protect the city's architectural and cultural heritage. That just says appoint people who are interested in what its function is. So you're not gonna appoint Jeff Blau to this commission. I guess you could.
No, no one's gonna appoint Jeff Blau to that.
Anywhere. You can put Jeff Blau anywhere.
Yeah, Jeff Blau anywhere.
We are being recorded by our public, so.
Just saying, I'm just saying that, it's just that it strikes to have that balance because it seems that's gone off the rails the last two administrations.
This is the,
But
I'm gonna
I guess-
call on JD and let JD speak, but this is exactly the reason why this letter, I think, needs.
Came back to
thread
these
the needle,
committees, right?
Right, and came back because there was no consensus of how this could get done, and finding a way to more finally thread the needle. So JD,
Yeah, I just have a philosophical argument that I'm kind of concerned if a country doesn't know its history, we end up with Donald Trump. And if the
Point.
the city does not preserve its history, its built environment, we're gonna end up that way as well. So in terms of a city advancing, in terms of a city wanting more people here, and in terms of people actually coming to the city, any great city preserves its architectural history. Sanford, I agree, there needs to be a balance. But to me, if I were running the city, if I wanted the city to thrive, for people to come here and to live here, wouldn't you want to make it more inviting? And you do that by preserving reasonably, I agree with you, reasonably, the heritage. So I think it's important to, and David, back me up here, I mean, I think economically, for a city to thrive, you've got to preserve stuff. You've got to do, every great city does it, London, Paris, Madrid, Chicago.
And they develop like crazy at the same time.
Well,
So,
wait, hold on. London, Paris, and Madrid are probably three of the. Like equally worst housing crises to
Have
New
you been
York.
out, have you been to London?
all right, okay, let's.
It's a huge office development in the middle of nowhere, into the city.
Chicago is actually doing a lot
We're
better.
getting
Chicago
sidetracked.
has built a lot.
We're getting sidetracked.
all I'm
Let's-
saying is that I think the
Your point was
larger
made.
argument, to achieve those goals of having more affordable housing, I think we need to preserve it, and I think that invites more affordable housing. That's just my philosophical argument.
Okay, Kevin,
I would suggest the latter part of page 3, whatever it is, line 74 to 87. That's hitting what I think we're talking about, finding the middle ground. Asking to hire people who believe in the underlying mission of what the LPC is, in contrast to some administrations, I'm giving you an example, who brought people into the EEOC who didn't believe in the.
Right.
LPC is, right? So, no, but I'm.
You're right, you're dead right, you're dead right.
And that this discussion, and everybody's entitled to their opinion, and it's good that we try to flesh out the facts, but this discussion, and just listening to it, it's still, like, I felt it like this. We're asking, correct me if I'm wrong, we're asking people who to do the hard work of listening and trying to find the middle ground of preserving the essence of the neighborhood, while at the same trying to address the housing crisis. And I would listen to that statement again, is a way to sprinkle that into this letter, because the essence of the letter, I get, but I think it's.
I made a note when you spoke, I said, we're the poster child for this.
It's still.
Our district has done preservation to a great degree through landmark or special zoning district, and we've done development that's unmatched in the city.
But Joe, but Kevin, is there an argument that LPC preserving actually reduces of housing? Where's the evidence?
Yeah, well,
It's a misnomer. There's an argument.
Let me-
that's made that it-
let me give a specific example of a clear case where LPC is the limited housing production. And like you can, like, this is not to say that all LPC actions reduce housing production, but I think I can give one specific example, which is the Soho upzoning that happened recently. Or not that recently at this point, but the Soho upzoning allowed much greater
Density.
like FAR and just a lot of residential construction as of right in many parts of Soho, and it has led to new construction, including new housing and new affordable housing. However, frequently the LPC, because that is a historic district, in keeping with their mission and what they have been legally told to do, does push back on the size and the bulk and the FAR and the number of units implicitly in those buildings. And therefore, like new buildings, which like it imposes requirements on construction that wouldn't have been allowed at all, and now it is allowed because of the upzoning. But those buildings are still have less units and less affordable units than they would have otherwise had, because LBC, again, in accordance with what they like legally have to do because it's a historic district, has pushed back on the bulk of those buildings and pushed back on other aspects of
Right,
those
so-
buildings.
And I just want to quickly answer JD's
Yeah,
question, since he
so-
asked me, I'm not saying it does, but I'm saying we should avoid the polarization. And if we're trying to find a middle ground, to stress that.
There's no evidence except what you're presenting, right?
But I think you're into a philosophical question about the value of landmarking. Because you're like, oh, the Empire State Building could stay, but Soho is a cherished New York district for a number of reasons. And we shouldn't be looking at every site as what is the optimum number of units we can get into, because you're kind of reducing the existence of New Yorkers into numbers.
Yeah.
You know,
I mean, I think people come to this city because they watched the movie Big and see Tom Hanks in a loft in Soho. And all of a sudden, the lofts in Soho, that model gets spread around the fucking world, all right? People come here because we are unique as a city, and our mixture of this demographic and mixed populations and incomes, everything's all mixed together. The fact that that neighborhood, which was due to be demolished because of the Lower Manhattan Expressway, was preserved, and then artists moved in the 1970s and began to do renovation. Now, that's entirely gone. That whole, like, there's a whole cycle that happens with development,
Yeah.
right? But it's part of our history. And when you say 20% of Manhattan, well, Manhattan is the historic core for the city. So therefore, there's always going to be more landmarking here because this is the oldest part of the city. You know, we're 400 years old this year, okay? So there's going to be a few things that should be kept. The idea that you don't manage development given the context and surroundings, because by managing development, you exclude all housing. I don't buy that binary choice. I think there's a middle ground there, and if you're building next to a cast iron row of buildings in Soho, then you should temper how you're doing what you're doing, because the private sector actually doesn't really build to build a city. They build to get the highest return,
Yes,
right? And they're not thinking much. I like that the landmarks commission is in there saying, well, change this, height, whatever, you know, that kind of stuff. It does mean that in that district, you're going to get less development, and you're gonna get less housing.
no,
But
but I
then you
wanted to
have-
bring up the 20% point because
Right.
20% is actually a pretty significant percent. 4% is not that much of the city overall. But when you think about it, 20, I mean, that's a big percent. I don't know if I want, like, there's a point where I'm like, I don't actually want that much more Manhattan to be.
We have the
frozen in
financial
amber.
district that is.
Do I want 25%, 30%? Like, there is a point where it's too much of Manhattan.
I gotta tell you, take the amber.
The numbers.
Yeah, your amber comment is just not, and by the way, I've come to like argue with you in a good way. No, let's argue badly before. Let me just finish this one. It's just not accurate, right? It's not.
Well, if you can't change how the building looks from the street, that imposes severe restrictions on your bulk of the building. It just does.
You can look at Terminal Warehouse. There's a humongous addition to it, right? And
Right,
that
if you have new lot area that is not included in the original building, then yes, you can build potentially quite large on that. But you can't, like, if the rule is your building needs to
No,
look the
it's
same from
include-
the street.
No, it doesn't. That's not the rule.
That's not the rule.
That's not the rule. That's a rule that you think exists. It doesn't exist.
All right, okay, let me go to Bob.
Now, that's not the point of, I don't know about the 4% or 20%, but according to Gotham's in 2023, there's 38,000 buildings that are either individually landmarked or within sites, and there's over 1 million buildings in the city of New York. So that's
I mean,
not, that's.
this is the report like from LTC in 2020, which I'm guessing like the quote from Landmark Preservation Commission that is included in the letter, like is very likely this was his backing data source.
No, it was a 2025 MMR.
But I think that this also gets into the point of like, we're getting caught up in 4%, 20%, 1 million bills there. Like, that isn't
I'm
really,
just saying, it's not that big a number.
but it's also, that is not the issue here. The issue here is, how do we balance? How do we get someone on the Landmark Preservation Commission who is gonna respect the Landmark Preservation Commission rules and procedures?
It's charter, it's in the city charter.
And within its charter, and we want to have somebody like that because we have our own experiences, positive and negative. We can say terminal warehouse and Dime Savings Bank, we can say we haven't received Patty's Market designation because there's no funding. We have 4 sites in Midtown South that have not been cited because there's no funding. Right,
And
so,
as the letter says, this is what most people want. But landmarks have been bowing down to the real estate industry. That is what the letter is saying.
well, hold on, I'm going to argue. The reason we're having this whole discussion is because even amongst this board, we're not in agreement and consensus, so that's what
Yeah.
most people.
And this
Most people, it's not an accurate.
This is a committee of people who care about it,
But
sure.
I'm calling on committee members first. I see David's hand, I hear his body language. And I know he's gonna talk for 20 minutes, so I got it. I'm taking committee members first. Aaron.
I was just gonna say something similar to what you just said, that coming back to what we're asking for in this letter isn't necessarily parsing out what we mean by preservation here, but thinking about who we're asking the administration to consider and appointing to head
Yeah.
the commission. So I would support, though, opening it on a little bit friendlier term and making sure that we're clear that that's what we're,
That makes a lot of sense, yeah.
right?
I like that.
Just returning your discussion to that.
Mhm.
So I
It's-
feel
it's
like we're
almost like a-
straying a little bit.
It's almost like Christine Berthet, take the bottom and put it up front. That she always makes the
I
motion.
was gonna mention that, but I wasn't sure, but.
No, I mean, it's just, by the way, and this is like a work in progress here, because we got David drafted, the whole thing would happen, and now we're talking about it. So the goal is, I think, I can say bluntly, so I'll work on this again, right? Is to get another version that makes it not binary, and that makes it very clear that
Right up front.
our,
You know,
yes, our experience does, yeah, right. Because we know how many other boards have an affordable housing plan. We're the party of one, you know.
I agree, the bottom should be the top.
Yep.
Thank you, Christine Bertet.
Hey, in spirit.
All right.
All right,
One more point for you, and then I'm gonna open up.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think this is my last point. This is a new point.
And I'm gonna ask people not to react. No, go ahead.
Oh. No, the point that I wanted to make, which I think is sort of a new thing, but I want to introduce it to the discourse is, this is a committee of well, we have some actual architects and then we have people who care about architecture, including, believe it or not, me. But there are truly many reasons people come to New York, and I do think one reason people come is they find the city beautiful and they've seen it in movies and the built environment attracts them. But I think, and I certainly think people who show up to community board meetings, that's also, especially one of their interests.
They're not running Hudson Yards.
But yeah, no, I complain about the Hudson Yards.
I know you do, we agree about this.
Look and feel all the time.
It's crap.
But I just think we should, when we think about like all the many people who do move to New York, and then the even larger number of people who would like to move to New York but can't because they can't afford it. There are lots of reasons people come, and one is the built environment, but I think, equally important is lots of people come because they care about the arts and they want to be with other artists. Lots of people come for career reasons. Lots of people come because they just think they're gonna meet cool and interesting people here. There's so many reasons, and to be honest, most of those reasons have nothing to do with the built environment. Most of them just require being in the city, and then the appeal is getting to spend time with all the other people who also wanted to be in New York and be in the most interesting, exciting place in the world. So I don't think we should speak for everybody when we say New York is the built environment. It is, that's an important piece of it, but probably I think, the bigger draw is the people in New York. And the most important thing is making sure it's possible that people who want to come to New York can continue to find other people who want to come to New York and have.
I think that's a valid addition to the letter in the context of the balance.
I'm sorry, I don't represent the people who wanna come to New York.
No, you don't, but he does, and I do.
You
Yes,
do?
but how about the people
I do.
who actually are from
This
the
is the
yard?
community board.
There are
Right, so
members.
I'm a part of the
community board
community
who are
as
from
well,
the yard.
and he is a part of the community as well. We are all part of
Right,
the
but
community.
I think we have
We have
common,
different
we have
perspectives.
common ground that most people are not saying, I wanna live in a really expensive high rise nuts and yards. Right?
I would agree with that.
Like, and I wanna live in a glass tower that I can't open the window, right?
But people do want to come to the city because of theater. and
Say that, yeah.
Activity and think there's a
We're getting-
vitality to the city.
We're getting a little far afield from our letter that I
But I
got.
said a little bit.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, we moved the word.
Aren't we all in different ways saying that we want somebody to head the Landmarks Preservation Commission that isn't in the pocket of
There you
the
go.
developers and who balances the nuances of all of these different things, right? Like,
Yes.
I'm saying I think they are balancing, and that this agreement is,
Well, they're clearly not balancing, they
All
designate
right,
four
all right,
things.
so let me, David's about to kick me in the backside if I don't let him speak, so
Yeah.
go, say it, please.
Not to write this letter is to say that because of the housing crisis, there should be a moratorium on preservation in DeWitt. And I'm not there.
Nobody
You know,
is.
you talk about people who come here because they want to be involved in the arts. Well, cities that attract the creative class are cities with historic residents and with architecture that people want to live here. And that goes for career opportunities too. It's not a coincidence that Google, the biggest employer in Chelsea, is between the Gansevoort market and the Chelsea Historic Districts. And there are other big presences on a little bit farther south, next to the Greenwich Village Historic District. That is a huge engine for attracting tourism, investment, and talent. If you look at Miami in the 1970s, developers wanted to demolish the Art Deco hotels along the ocean front because they were very small and could put up much taller ones. Short term, you'd make a killing in profit. And because those were designated landmarks in the 1970s, Miami is a different city today. It would not have the economic engine it does. It would not be the international brand identity that it is. It wouldn't have Art Basel Miami. It's, and New York, it has that wonderful resource in historic districts that make people want to come here. They're similar to public parks, which really do freeze development, but we wouldn't think about getting rid of them. And we now have a socialist neighbor, and people are afraid that he's going to tax the rich and corporations to the point where they're going to flee. Well, if you want them to stay and be taxed so that maybe we can create some publicly funded affordable housing that would really make a difference, you don't want to kill the city's desirability. I'm from the Rust Belt, I can tell you that. And it's, as far as density goes, a lot of buildings in historic districts
Are denser.
what zoning allows. An example is the Avenue building, which is built to an FAR of 11.
You don't know it.
Side is the densest neighborhood in the United States. It's 30% minimum. I worked in the 1980s on a new luxury apartment tower on the Central Park West Historic District. It shoots up 40 stories right out of the top of a contributing historic building, the 63rd Street YMCA. I met with the Landmarks Commission staff, the chair was instrumental in getting it approved. The firm I worked for was the third largest in the city. That was their bread and butter, and they got competitors to do the same work. There's a huge amount of development about it. The Brooklyn Tower, that is super tall, directly over a landmark. One thing that we got out of that, in addition to the commission allowing it to be built to its full zoning envelope, it's designed by a very good architect. The commission, if you're gonna go there and get approval for a building like that, you come through the door with an architect. And I'm not gonna weigh in on whether that building is too tall or not, but it is an instant icon. And any building built in a historic district is automatically landmark, and it should be worthy of that designation. That's the kind of building that makes people look at New York at the skyline and say, I wanna move there. And like I said, that's an economic engine that we need to do something with, and now we've got an opportunity with the mayor who might use that attractiveness and convert it into affordable housing.
Okay, thanks, Ed. So again, healthy, robust conversation. You can see why this has not been easy, because there's a lot of divergent views. But I think the notions that Kevin was putting forward, bottom to the top from Bob and Aaron, more restraint in this letter, more examples of successes within the historic districts and less pointing to faults and criticisms of their actions, but rather how this has been successful. Terminal warehouse is one, but also the lack of funding for designating sites that we have been asking for designation. There are many in Chelsea, there are some here, and we have Midtown South mixed use. So preservation, as someone at the appointed who is understands the mission of the LPC, somebody who understands the balance between preservation and housing development, and this notion that this is a vibrant city because of some of the historic character, but also because some of the just vitality of the people who live within those buildings.
And I suggest a request a meeting to follow.
And suggest a meeting as a follow-up.
And
to
so-
have a dialogue.
I'm really good.
Think about how to use the historic nature to solve the problems.
Well, it always, listen, what I've learned is that the real estate folks think it's a huge obstacle. In reality, it's an opportunity.
Right.
And I actually,
That would be some good language. This is
No, I got it.
obstacle, it's an opportunity. And this touches on Sanford's point that, people come here for a reason, to tie into David's point that the historic fabric is part of what attracts people as well.
and I have been going to South Beach since the early 1980s, seen a huge change there. No.
We talk about our neighborhood all the time.
I know, but the point of it is that actually drove a major change in economy.
Yeah.
So where do we want to go from?
I think
So
there's all these notes, right? I wanna redraft it again. It's gonna go to Chelsea Land Use next.
Chelsea land use.
But I think I want to incorporate everything and I'll circulate, we'll circulate it back to the committee members to add more things.
And then I also serve on Chelsea Land Use Committee, so I'll be able to go and have this conversation with Chelsea Land Use Committee.
But I mean, serious, like for anybody else, let's look at it again, but this should be a developing thing. That we figure out how to make this be this non-binary choice.
And by the time the next mayor's in office.
Yeah, we'll have it
done.
But
No.
But
By our March 3rd board meeting.
my personal intent on this also is that not to have, and that's why I wrote more restraint in this other, is not to approach the new mayor and confront.
Yeah.
But rather go to the new mayor and cajole and be like, hey, these are the benefits of historic districts. This is the
Nelson,
benefit. You get more.
We are master cajolers.
All right, so that is for sure. I don't think we need a formal motion on that. I'll just take it to the next committee and then the motion will come out of Chelsea Land Use then.
Well, it's gonna come out of, I think we would support a final version from Chelsea Land Use. Right?
Yeah, as long as an agreement on this, more restraint language. and
Yeah.
Nuanced.
Got it.
No, correct. So why don't we,
I'm sorry, what? We would,
In other words,
it would go to the executive,
right, it's
we'll go
gonna,
back to
the
executive.
process is gonna go
right,
here, Chelsea Land Use, anything
And then
to resolve, exact,
And then it'll come out of exec.
right. And just say that
Joint committee.
we gotta say we support that we talked about it. And made changes,
Yeah, I think that'll,
right?
we don't have a motion on that. No. Okay, all right. We have two items under old and new business,
Maybe the short,
under, what?
maybe the checkbox, please. Oh, good.
I have it there. Why don't we do that one first?
Yeah, so here's a weird one, folks. We have a win from the Department of Buildings of all places, right?
Imagine that.
The first week of the de Blasio administration, I sat in a meeting with Bob Benfado, I think you were there. And at City Hall with the speaker Corey Johnson.
Oh, Parrot,
Huh?
the meeting Parrot, what's his name?
No, before that, yeah. And we had these illegal
Did you
demolition,
say Mayor LaGuardia?
de Blasio. Yeah, it feels like LaGuardia sometimes, yeah. So, we asked specifically to deal with this illegal demolition issue, could we get a checkbox on the DOB system that just noted that a building's in the subject to CONH and demolition restriction? And we were told it would happen right away. And we have been at this, Bob, for years, right? And then we finally met with them, what, 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago?
We had that meeting, we had that call with the new guy and he said, yeah, I'll look into that.
So we said to them, listen, we know you can't do it on the old biz system, but can you do it on the new DOB now system? I got an email on last Friday from Katie Savage from West 42nd Street and our board member, that there's a checkbox now. on the system. I was like, and then we began to check, and it shows up in multiple districts. So one of the things I've asked the Clinton House Community Planner to do come February, March, to go through and check every block and lot from the maps. Because we're not gonna trust them to put the checkbox on every place. So that means that no owner can ever come here again to say, I didn't know I was demolishing that building because I thought I could.
Well, congratulations.
I think it's an amazing.
So I would like to entertain a motion
Yeah,
that the board send a letter thanking the Department of Buildings for instituting this checkbox that we have been requesting.
Well,
since,
I make a motion.
and
Since effort, I would say persistence on
Kevin and Aaron.
board. Checkbox.
Request the checkbox.
5 years?
No.
It's got, you can.
No, it's the J. The
You
J,
put
no
it,
J.
yeah, R in the box.
J.
Restrict
JR.
restrict you.
Yeah.
You want to
All right.
compliment the commission. so
Can I have a vote on that motion, please? All in favor? Anybody opposed? Anybody? Yep.
Are you
opposing
opposing these or?
James, you're with us, right, on that? Yes?
Yes.
Thank you. Anybody, nobody's P and E, correct? Okay. Very good. Next item. The, updates on the ULURP application for the DeWitt Clinton Park. Most of us, so not all of us, were at the last full board meeting and we saw we bifurcated the discussion. Draft EIS is going out. We're still negotiating on the ULURP application. We shifted tone from approve with conditions to deny unless. We are continuing to have negotiations with the development team to try to attain more of what we wanted to ask for in the first place. And they've been pushed back but the development team is still continuing the dialogue. We have a meeting scheduled either tomorrow or Friday, Thursday or Friday, trying to get it on the books, and it's been challenging for everybody. We will continue to have those conversations. The deadline for submitting this ULURP letter is the 23rd, which is the executive committee meeting. So we will hope to have this letter done in time for the executive committee to approve the final language. The final approval of that letter for the ULURP will come from executive committee to then be ratified at our March meeting. All right, so.
And the goal would be if between now and then, we can achieve most of the requests that we made, to then flip it back to a approval conditions. Really depend, there are some basic things that are so simple, like
Like, Chuck,
what,
what were the sticking points?
oh no, like, for example, we did not get that the apartment finishes would be the same. It was similar equipment, like simple things that are not an issue.
There are a lot of things that are gonna be very easy, but there's still some major sticking
Correct.
points. Building height, we've been asking for height to decrease as you go closer to the river. They chop some off the western
Not
side,
taking away bulk,
but it's
just
still
keeping the
taller than the eastern side. We have asked for 30% of all square footage being affordable.
As
They're
opposed-
offering 25% of residential square footage to be affordable. We're asking for higher levels of income bands from a moderate middle income housing. Their
Our
plan is
normal.
for an average six. So all the things we normally ask for in our developments.
In the park?
Money for the
And
park.
contribution to the park.
Negotiated
something we've been
contribution to the
asking
park,
for.
yeah.
And the facade, right?
And
Material.
change, they've agreed to the changing the facade material.
We haven't gotten the percentage settled yet, because you can say, we will change it, but it'll be 4 bricks and all glass.
Okay,
so-
Gotta write it down one more.
So I know that you said that the height, but really the height would dictate that the bulk fill out the site differently.
Correct.
That would make.
They're in the 12th Avenue building,
Yeah.
there's 2 wings.
Oh, I.
They would have to get
Very.
A little bit bigger, and then
Yes.
thing come down the top, and just keep the bulk, yeah.
Yeah.
And then there, like Joe said, there are some minor things like, the street wall on 11th Avenue, they essentially agreed to do that, but
Partially.
the design of it was not exactly the way, so
It doesn't meet the
there's some
zoning.
small things that we still have to do, but the bigger items are still not quite there yet.
And you think it done before the exec?
I remain,
We have to-
cautious- I remain cautiously optimistic, how's
Yeah.
that for a phrase?
I mean, we have to do it, and, fortunately, Gilbert has indicated that whatever, she said in a meeting, whatever community board 4 says, I will support. So if, as you know, this process goes from us to
To the BP
borough
next.
president to then the city
What
council.
about Con Ed vaults? It's all
I'm sorry, what?
Con Ed vaults.
You know something? We gotta put that in there.
Con Ed Vault.
No, this whole thing with not having if the vaults are on the sidewalk,
Can't
use
plant
any street
trees.
trees.
Oh, we can't do trees, so.
Got that. That's one of our standard things.
That's what, yeah, again, I don't think we've raised that in discussion, so thanks for bringing that
That's a
up.
simple
But
thing.
that's another thing that we almost always ask for, so it should be part of our dialogue.
So-
And I'm channeling Christine, garbage.
Yeah, I was about to ask.
Garbage, internal garbage and,
Yeah,
you know,
right,
trash
right.
collection systems and removal systems internal to the buildings.
So, Paul, so if those disagreements are resolved, the letter changes to an approval
We would bring that to vote
with
at the,
conditions, and if it
Exactly.
doesn't, it's still a denial?
deny less.
Unless.
Deny unless, we had started the letter with approve with conditions, because this is a site we want to build housing. And this is part of our plan, is to build housing, so
In our
we say,
affordable housing plan.
let's do this. But then what they proposed is not quite where we want it to be. We ended up in discussions with them, and they weren't kind of moving along in the same way that we had anticipated, and we weren't accomplishing as many of our.
Got a little bumpy toward the end.
Got a little tense in one of the meetings, and then we said, so we presented this to the full board, and the full board said, well, if they might be saying approve, say deny. Right, so if we, in our conversations, attain more of the accomplishments, then we will go to executive committee and say, we've met 10 of the 12.
We have a bullet of it,
You know, so is this enough to justify saying approve? Because we are getting the housing stock we want, we're getting the affordability we want, we're getting the height we want, you know, like. So the board, at its full board vote, gave us that leniency, but the position is
Flexibility.
deny unless it's not.
It was just, you know, I am really hoping that this gets settled because this
Yeah.
project's something that.
I can't
We pushed
open
it.
it to the.
Did they talk any more about timeframe? Cause they had given us 2029 and then said, well, maybe we won't.
Right,
do it.
we also made it clear that we need to get a little more time frame here.
Yeah.
Like, that's like, it can't be, we'll build it when we get to it.
And we do have two, you don't wanna say, you don't wanna talk.
No, they wanna listen.
But are we saying anything outside?
No.
Okay.
So just introduce yourself, so I might know who you are, if I forgot.
They did that again, maybe, yes.
Amy, part of the real estate team at Casale, my colleague Catherine McGrath, and we provide lobbying and government relations support to Cleveland and Chatham states, where we are just here to listen, so.
We could resolve this right now.
You could just agree.
You're taking away your conditions, you're giving us a yes.
Check box.
Yeah, you're right, Jay, we can accomplish it right now.
But I mean,
We can just approve their plan.
I really think so, like the word to sum this up is that this is a unique case where the board has been in support of this on record. And we did not expect to hit these sort of bumps at the end, that's all. And we've come to understand something too, everyone should know, this project is nowhere near as baked as we thought. So the idea of how many 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom studios, no, it's percentage of what we built because they're not, these apartments aren't even laid out yet. So that's the thing that we come to understand.
Anything else? All right, I'm done with what I have for old new business. Anybody else want to raise any other topics?
We should mention this, Paul.
I should mention this.
Yes, it is.
Oh, right. This is if you all remember the Musica license application on the adult entertainment site.
Adult inside goes.
That public hearing is scheduled for Monday, February 23rd and Tuesday, February 24th. Some one of us will go and present.
Paul.
Yeah, thanks. If I don't have.
I won't be in town.
Yeah, oh wait, I have to talk to you later, because we have to do something on the 25th then, because I'm not.
That's correct, I'm back.
Okay, all right, so that hearing is coming up on February 23rd and 24th. So we will once again present our argument that the 500-foot rule is a major thrust of why that we don't support that, but.
You would have thought Adam's gone, this will go away.
No, right, the other thing I just want to raise in preparation, I got word today that the Site K development site has put in for their draft scope work to begin on March 4th. So they're filing on March 4th, so I expect that the Site K scoping process will come to our March 11th meeting. So be prepared for another scope for EIS for large scale development.
And for those of us who are housing fans, that's 1,300 units in one building.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing we've ever seen so far.
This is potentially the first development in the city that will be built over 12 FAR since
Residential.
the removal of that 12 FAR residential cap. So for us, it's very important that we have some very strong language, some real controls, some parameters.
This is an 18 FAR, right?
This is, I think it's an 18 FAR residential. So we,
I know.
so we want to make sure that a lot of the things that came up in our, a lot of the things that came up in our FAR discussions in that working group, that the things that didn't get signed off on, that we try to push for those as precedent establishment for the rest of the city, really, but also just for our own neighborhood.
So imagine the amount of garbage generated by a 1,300 unit apartment building.
And
Needs to be inside.
and where, and where, across from the Javits Center.
Between 3.5 and 3.6, Stadium Jack.
And to kind of Brad Pascarella, where will the delivery drones land and take off?
I swear by God,
If
yes.
we don't have drone delivery docks on these buildings. So,
I was asked by another developer, where's that back door? Because they've already put the garbage facing there.
yeah, I mean, a lot of the things that we talk about.
How about the size of the Con Ed vaults in the sidewalk for a building that size?
Yeah.
That would be.
Imagine all
entire
the
sidewalk.
Amazon boxes they're gonna pile up in a 1,300 unit building. Like every day, there's gonna be 1,000.
They showed us a package room that was like a studio apartment size. They did.
That would be
Anyway,
bigger.
be prepared for next month, me to make the request, as we always do, that people take chapters of the scope and really dig into it, because don't forget, the scoping process is where we set what they research. And what comes out of the draft GIS, this is the first step in that process, and if we don't ask for it to be studied, it ain't gonna get studied.
Yes.
And remember, on the heels of this, in about a month or two, we should see a designation of the Intrepid parking lot site by ESD. And that is another very large
Yeah.
building.
Yeah.
So we could have 1,300 unit buildings being developed at the same time.
Yeah, and in this year, we're
gonna need that school, Sanford.
Yeah.
30th Street.
Yeah.
That related, better build that school. All right, anything else? I would.
No, because all the units are gonna be singles.
Can I entertain a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Kevin, JD, thank you all very much. Great. meeting.
Thanks.
Thanks, James.
Bye, bye. Exactly.
Thank you, Janine.
Unit distribution, they have got a really quick on that.